What is going on, degenerates? Happy Friday, everybody. UFC 299 right around the corner. One more sleep, as our guy Jhon would say. Welcome back to the best damn betting show on the net today. The undefeated post-weigh-in show. First time on Home of Fight. I am so pumped up. This card is so dang good. And this is my favorite time of the week. This is my favorite show to do. I get to hang out with you guys in the chat. We get to look at everything that's happened all week. We get to type and text with all of our buddies, our little think tank, put it all together, and then we get to make some bets, and we get to do our very, very best to make some additional cash over the weekend. As you know, we call this show Undefeated for a reason. Never a bad read, never a bad bet, not one losing play on this here show. And we're bringing that to Home of Fight. What's up, everybody? Colby Saul in the house. We got Steven Jackson, Paul, the GOAT. I apologize, GOAT. You are not first, though. As you can see, I had a couple other people who are in here just a little bit before you. Melinda Hernandez, Raw Dog Joel, my guy D. D saying today is his birthday. Happy birthday, D. Thank you very much for always hanging out with me on the show, man. You got to go out there and do something fun. I mean, talk about good timing. Birthday on a Friday. That's what it's all about. I hope you took the day off or something like that. Go get a steak dinner, man. You got to go have some fun. All right. So those of you who may be new to the Die Hard MMA podcast, and specifically the Undefeated post-weigh-in show, we're going to run back over the card with a focus on watching these fighters. What I do this morning, I study everything all day. I watch them on the scales. I will report to you if we see any funny business. I watch them at the ceremonial face-offs. We get that extra little bit of info because sometimes the UFC stat numbers are wrong, and we need to see how these fighters actually size up with each other when they get to face off. And, you know, we've had places where guys have been like 3 or 4 inches off even compared to the height. So you've got a picture in your head. You got to actually see it. And then we put that all together and we take one final stab at a prediction for UFC 299 on Saturday. We go over the lines and numbers and all that good shit. And of course, there's a big focus on you guys in the chat. Do me a favor. Set up a freaking bat signal. Hit the like button for me. Let everybody know where we are so they can come in here and find us. And oh, by the way, I need to shout out my people on Spotify, my audio only listeners. I need you guys to do me just a little bit of a favor. So with the new deal that I've got going with Home of Fight, I am now uploading everything audio version to Home of Fight as well. So it would do me a massive favor, just a big deal, if we could get some numbers over there on the Home of Fight audio page as well. And you know what, guys? It doesn't cost you a damn thing. If you could turn on downloads for the Die Hard MMA podcast, if you want to stick with me on my own audio channel, I appreciate you. But if you could also get the Home of Fight downloaded there, it doesn't hurt you to download it twice. It's a quick swipe to just delete the extra episode, but the download goes a long way for your boy. So do me a favor, please get signed up over at Home of Fight, and everybody on YouTube, subscribe here as well if you haven't already. All right, everybody, let's go ahead and get straight on into it. First fight of the evening tomorrow is going to be Marlon Vera taking on Jojo Wood. Moroz came in at 126. Jojo made 125 on the dot. Moroz looking in fantastic shape. I mean, she always does. We know she runs the OnlyFans. She's got to stay in good shape to pull that off. Jojo Wood looked a bit rough. No smile on her face, I might add. Now, this is already confirmed to be Jojo Wood's retirement fight. She's hanging up the gloves after this, and you guys know, my angle on retiring fighters. You're never betting on them. We're only ever betting against them, because if you've got one foot out the door, you probably didn't push yourself as hard in training. That tough little spot that you find yourself in, are you really going to push super hard to get out of it? Do you have that killer instinct left? Probably not really, because you're on your way out the door. You know, this is the last one. There's a lot of ways where fighters just aren't quite the same when they're ready to retire. So we're never betting on JoJo Wood here. Now, is this line a little bit wide? Munoz is minus 240 at this point, plus 200, plus 195 on JoJo Wood. Yeah, that's probably a little bit too wide. But at the same time, we have seen Wood have problems with the grappling. We have seen Wood get submitted in round wood multiple times by a lot of different women, especially with the armbar. You got to think she's prepared for that, but it's been a lifelong struggle. She's never been able to correct that. Her entire career, she has not been able to protect from that round one submission loss. So because of that, I mean, it's got to be Munoz. It's Munoz or pass. I know the OnlyFans fade. I know everybody wants to, fade the ladies that have the extracurriculars outside the cage, and I get that. But at the end of the day, Munoz is the one who probably is locked in as far as having a career. She's going to be here for another couple of years, and JoJo is not going to be here beyond Saturday. So I absolutely have to pick Munoz. If they were running this thing back, 2 years ago, I probably would go back to the well with my girl JoJo. I think she's the better striker. I do think Munoz probably has more natural power than she does. She's got a slight wrestling advantage and obviously grappling upside. So yeah, it's Munoz, but I don't want to lay minus 240 on her. When I do my predictions, and I do like the $5 parlay where we try to sweep the entire card, one fight away last week, one fight off last week. When we sweep the entire card, it'll happen eventually. Munoz will be the pick. She's going to be the one that I plug on in there. Joe saying, let's go. We've got D in here saying, absolutely 3-day weekend. Got nachos and pasta. That's what's up. Walla Walla Dose in the house. Sean D asking, no super chat yet. I am sure we will get it. As you guys know, it's a recent thing here with the Home of Fight. So yeah, it takes a little bit to build that up. I think you have to have a certain number of hours viewed on your channel before you get access to those kinds of things. So that's what I need you guys for. We're going to have to build this bad boy up from the ground. And that's what I'm excited about here. Some big time opportunities here with Home of Fight. Steven Jackson here. What's going on, buddy? All right. Asu Almabayev up next takes on CJ Vergara. The one little bump in the road at weigh-ins today. We've got Asu Almabayev weighing 126 pounds. CJ Vergara missed by 1 pound, 127 today. Asu looked great. Dude is jacked. Gave a solid flex for a little guy. And then CJ Vergara, this is where it gets interesting. He got up there on the scales today, 1 pound over. They gave him an hour to cut the weight. As always, you get that additional allotted time to go ahead and get yourself back down to your proper weight for the fight. He cuts weight for an additional hour, and he still weighed 127. This guy's body shut down. There was absolutely no additional sweat available for him to get out. He could not lose that 1 pound. And that's something for me, that's what we do this show for, is when these fighters have a tough weight cut, we try to bet against them at every opportunity. Now, everybody has a tough weight cut, right? Like, it's got to be a little grain of salt. We can't just bet against everybody that looks bad on the scale, because you'll be burning money, because everybody has a tough weight cut. But this is the kind of situation where CJ Vergara, a guy that's already struggling, has to cut for an additional hour. He's not refueling, he's not rehydrating, and he still can't get that pound off of him. So he went through hell and back, and he still wasn't able to do it. When you watch the clip of him going in for like the weigh-in, he is exhausted. His mouth is hanging open, his face is sucked out, and he's got like his arm hanging over the top of the box of shame there. He had nothing left. He had absolutely nothing left to give. So CJ Vergara is going to have to give up 30% of his purse. Now, this was an intense stare down. CJ's ready to go. He does obviously rehydrate well. He's a pretty big dude for this weight class, obviously, with the weight cutting issues like we mentioned before. But the size discrepancy was not as big as I was expecting. Asu, I kind of think of in my mind as being a little bit of a little guy here for this weight class, but they size up pretty dang well. I mean, CJ's probably a little bit thicker, but it's not that big of a difference. CJ was all amped up, whereas Asu Almabayev had that quiet confidence about him. And there's something about that, guys. I don't know what it is, but I like the quiet confidence. Don't get me wrong. We'll talk about Ion Kutalaba a little later. When you get up there and you scream and you roar on the scale, I love the intensity. That's good stuff. But when your opponent is the one who's trying to kind of like get in your face or get in your head, and they just stare them down, like they're staring daggers through their soul, they can't be bothered. There's something about that. That's that whole "you think and I know" thing to me. Like, I feel like Asu knows how he's going to win this fight. The confidence screams. Now, I've already got a bet on this one. You guys should know my 7-unit bomb is in play here on UFC 299. It has been some time since I laid out the 7-unit bet. I'm very selective with these. In fact, we've only had 7 of them in the past 5 years since we started the podcast. It is my max bet. It's as big as I'll go on a single play. And the first leg of that max bet is Asu Almabayev. Now, is it scary laying chalk on a men's 125-pound fight where the margins are thin and the fight's relatively close usually? Yes. Yes, that is scary. However, I've bet on CJ Vergara several times, and basically his entire UFC run, I feel like he's kind of overachieving. He's on the older end, he's not getting any better, and he really relies on people slowing down and tiring out for him to really get into and take over the fight. He's got a fine skill set. I have no problems with him, but he's a mid to low tier guy in the UFC, and that's what he's going to be, and I don't think he's going to get past that. Asu Almabayev, on the other hand, he's 30 years old, he's in his prime, he got into the UFC, and he had that first appearance and it wasn't perfect, and he still got to finish in the second round. I think he's got a grappling advantage here in this spot. I think he's got a striking and a speed advantage here in this spot. So I love everything about Asu, and I feel like this is the perfect opponent for him to really get out there and shine. Now, he's closing in on like minus 600. He's like minus 575 in some places. And that's a big, big number. I parlayed him a little earlier in the week where it was a little bit cheaper than that. But I mean, realistically, if you're looking for that just win parlay piece, I absolutely think that Asu Almabayev is the guy that gets this fight done. And I'm a little interested in those round 2, round 3 props. You look back at Asu Almabayev's record, he's never finished anybody in the 3rd round. He wins in the 2nd. And it's like on repeat that he takes people out in the 2nd. You look at sites like DraftKings, they're doing their very best to choke out, absolutely strangle these props. It's going to be a tough prop week for most people because the most likely outcome, they're not giving you a deal on whatsoever. And even some of the hot takes, they're not giving you a very good deal on. So Asu Almabayev by sub was a plus money prop earlier in the week. It's minus 110. So they believe, and people have bet hard enough that Asu is going to sub this guy, that it's all the way down to minus 110 on there. You're not even getting even money anymore on this guy to win by submission. I think that's the most likely path to him finishing, is probably a sub, especially if CJ doesn't have his usual gas tank or cardio because of this tough weight cut. And we have seen him put on the ground before. We have seen him styled on the ground before. Tatsuro Taira got him out of there in round 2 specifically. And I actually thought about, going a little tinfoil cap and being like, well, Asu Almabayev is not Tatsuro Taira, so maybe he gets it done in round 3 rather than getting it done in round 2. But then I looked back at the record and I'm like, shit, he only ever does it in round 2. Like he's probably going to cook him in round 2 if he's going to do it, right? Because that's historically what he has done. So I'm leaning Asu Almabayev sub round 2 if you want to take, a long shot sprinkle, but it's not even, like I said, props suck this week. It's not even that big of a long shot. You're getting like plus 450 on round 2 sub here on DraftKings. So absolutely disgusting prop numbers here this week. That's absolutely vile. But we're with Asu Almabayev, like one of our big parlay here. Craig Brown, what's up? I'm back, baby. Didn't go anywhere. Technically, I did. I hopped YouTube channels, but we didn't even miss a week. So we're here, baby. We're here. Charles LaRoche, Raw Dog, Colby Saul, what's going on, everybody? And yes, it's so great, Colby, to have the chat back. It's my favorite part. Absolutely. All right, next up, we have got Robles de España taking on Josh Perisian. Robles came in at 261 pounds. Josh Perisian tipping the scales at 266. We got some big boys here. Heavyweight action. Robles de España, absolutely massive chest. You look at this guy and it's weird. Like his pecs, he's a freak of nature. He's a mutant. Like he's got twice as long of pecs as a human being should have. It's absolutely insane. He also has incredibly long arms. He beat Jhon Jones' record for the longest arms in the UFC as far as ratio to your body goes. He's in excellent shape, even being a little bit older. Josh Perisian, he's one of these big old bag of milk type of dudes. I mean, he's in a little bit better shape than, like the Roque Martinez of the world, stuff like that, but he's nothing to write home about on the scales. We're kind of used to that with Josh Perisian. Big size difference here between these guys. Robles is an absolute monster. And guys, this is one of those ones. We knew Robles was going to have a size advantage. We knew Robles was going to have a height advantage. But when you see them stand up next to each other, you're like, Josh Perisian is not a small dude. And there's a big size difference. Like Robles is freaking huge in there next to him. I know there is always that risk that Robles gasses out after swinging big once or twice, but he is a bronze medalist taekwondo fighter. Like, this guy has fought combat sports his entire life. He's a lifelong combat athlete. And if he whiffs on one or two punches and that's the end of his gas tank, like, I'm not sure how he got to the Olympics doing that kind of shit. I am willing to bank on the fact that he'll have a little bit more cardio than that. Now, his grappling obviously is probably a bit of a weak point, but we've seen Josh Parisian be unable to take any kind of significant damage in his type of fights as well, especially his last one where he just kind of got mauled and blown over by his last opponent. If you get handled like that by some of the mid to low tier UFC guys, Robles is probably going to put you down in a punch or two. Like, all we needed is this guy to connect with one or two clean strikes, and I think Josh is going to be looking for the door. So this does close out my 7-unit parlay. Like I said, it's a little risky. We've got big chalk on a little guy and we've got big chalk on a big guy. Neither of which are things you, generally speaking, want to do. But hey, rules are meant to be broken. I feel like this is low-hanging fruit with these two guys to go ahead and get it done. That same parlay now is about like minus 195, minus 200. I got like minus 176 on it earlier in the week. So the difference being it's not not a huge thing. A lot of people want to add like one more favorite to that to go ahead and get it down near even money. And I think that makes sense if you want to do it that way, because we are doing the just win approach with this thing, right? But be careful, because I feel like the other favorites on this card are treacherous at best. So whoever you pick or whatever prop you choose to be the final leg to bring that number down, if you want to make a 3-legger instead of a 2-legger, just be careful. Just think twice. Make sure you're picking something that isn't going to just get absolutely starched, because there's a lot of violence upside here on this card this week. Next up, we have got Michel Pereira taking on Michal Oleksiejczuk. There we go. When I type those things out, they look very, very similar. I forget which one is the pronunciation, which way. Oleksiejczuk makes 185 pounds. Pereira makes 186 pounds. Oleksiejczuk, he's one of these soft body dudes. He was always a soft body dude at 205. I thought maybe when he dropped down to 185, he'd get a little bit more muscly. You could see some abs in there. No, he's still got that soft, pudgy belly on him, which is kind of a little bit weird. But I mean, I think he's kind of a naturally smaller guy. That gives him a speed advantage more often than not. And that's where he finds his success. So I don't want to hate on him too much. We're not body shaming anybody here. Michel Pereira on the other side of this thing, though, he was absolutely shredded. I mean, when he was cutting down to 170 pounds, I still don't know how he pulled that off. I have no idea to this day how he made that work. He looks great at 185. I mean, he still has some serious muscle definition. It looks like he's filled out well for the weight class. He's not killing himself to get down there. So I'm expecting to have more juice, a little bit more energy, be able to move a little bit longer, not worry so much about the gas tank. He was backflipping at the ceremonials today, which was impressive as heck that he can pull that kind of a thing off. Very much having fun. Michal, on the other hand, was all business. This guy was like staring him down, trying to get mean and angry at him. They size up really, really well. Now, Pereira does have a slightly smaller frame. Like I mentioned, you've got a guy coming up from 170. Even though he was a size bully at 170, it's still a 15-pound gap. And then you've got a guy who cut down from 205, small 205er. They're meeting in the middle, and they're right about the same size. It looks like Oleksiejczuk has just ever so slightly a larger frame as far as like the shoulders and the makeup of their bodies, just a little bit bigger, but it's not enough to really make me worried about anything. This is a spot that, believe it or not, guys, I think I'm going to add. I've been kind of staring at Pereira all week. This is a guy that, in his first little bit at the UFC level, I kind of had a rough run. I wasn't really able to predict him or his fights very well, but he was so chaotic. He didn't do what we expected him to. And since then, he's really kind of pulled it together. He's got good game planning. He actually sticks to his game plans. He's got good footwork. He's fast. And based on his last fight, it looks like he's kept that speed up at 185. And he still hits like a truck up at 185. So I think 185 might be a better weight class for this guy. And even though 185 is a better weight class for Oleksiejczuk as well, we have seen Oleksiejczuk tire out after a couple minutes. We've seen him get hurt to the body. We've seen him slow down in fights. And let's be honest, he just can't really grapple. If you take this guy down, he's basically done. Like, if he gets taken down once or twice, Oleksiejczuk seems to just kind of crumble in those fights. He's only lost one decision in his career, Oleksiejczuk, and Pereira, on the other hand, is winning decisions pretty regularly at this stage of his career. I'm going to go with Michel Pereira. He's about minus 148, it looks like, is the best number I can see on him at this point in time. I know a lot of people that are actually on the Oleksiejczuk side, and I get it. He does hit hard. He does have fast hands. but I feel like these guys are going to size up really well. And I actually think Oleksiejczuk's pressure is going to be something that kind of fails him here in this spot, because Pereira, he likes that front kick to the body. And boy, does he hit that thing hard. And when you come at somebody in a straight line, you're walking right at them, your body in your face, that front kick is such an easy weapon. You're open for all of that. And you can stay on guard. You can stay on balance. You can make space and still damage your opponent. And the way Michel likes to move backwards and set up traps, having an opponent that just kind of stomps his way towards you, straight at you in a direct line, that's like fish in a barrel for a guy like this. So as long as I'm correct about him being at home at 185, I think this is going to be Pereira's fight. As long as he doesn't get starched in round one, because guys, that's really the threat here. Oleksiejczuk could finish him and could finish him early. The deeper this thing goes, I trust Pereira's cardio more. I think he's got a better process as far as the way that he fights, and he's the guy that I think is going to have more success the deeper the fight goes. So yeah, I'm probably going to end up adding Michel Pereira. Billy in the house. What's up, Billy? Thanks for tuning into the show, buddy. Pereira subs him. No ground game from Michel Oleksiejczuk. And you know what? I could see that. That's one that I didn't give a ton of thought to. Michel Pereira, over the course of his career, has 6 submission wins. And, we did actually see one just very, very recently. He got a 3rd round submission over Zelim Imadaev. It wasn't even that long ago that he tapped out Zelim back in 2020. So, yeah, we've seen that. We've seen it at the UFC level. So he knows what he's doing. And hopefully, he knows Oleksiejczuk's game and weakness, and if he does, that sub is probably on the table, Billy. Good shout, good call. Let's see just how screwed the odds are on this, because that would be a bit of a hot take, but they're only giving you plus 500. Look at that. Shameful. Absolutely shameful. I actually kind of wouldn't mind like a round 3 shot on Michel Pereira, because I could see Oleksiejczuk winning or fighting very closely in round 1, and then round 2, Pereira starts to distance himself, and then by round 3, it's all team Pereira. It's only 9-1 for Michel Pereira in round 3, which, I want like 11 or 12-1 at least on these round 3 props, but 9-1, I think he could probably find a finish. I have a hard time seeing this fight go the full 15 minutes. Michel Pereira by decision plus 250. It kind of makes a little bit of sense, but based on what we know from Oleksiejczuk and the way he caves when he's not the one in the driver's seat, I kind of would rather look at a finish prop instead. I don't know. It's close. Money line is short enough to play, though. I think that's what it comes down to for me, is the minus 150-ish is plenty cheap enough to just not mess around with the props on this. And I think that's this entire card, guys. Like, there's some cards where it's prop madness. Like, you can hit 1 prop out of 7 and still turn a profit because the numbers are insane if you've got the right angles on them. This isn't that. A lot of these props are barely giving you more value than the actual money line of the fighters. I'd rather go bigger on the money lines and leave some of these props alone in that circumstance. Billy asking for sub round 2, sub round 3 instead. Pereira sub 2 is 14-1, sub 3 is 22-1. Now we're talking, Billy. Now we're talking. Sub 2 and 3, maybe sub round 3, 22-1, and then round 3 at 9-1. Couple little sprinkles there if you want to get a little fancy with it. There we go. And see that right there? That's the power of the chat, baby. We come together, we talk this thing through. Every once in a while, somebody else in the chat puts their tinfoil hat on, and we find something that we like. Next up, you've got Ion Cutelaba taking on Felipe Lind. Cutelaba 205 on the dot. Felipe Lind needed that extra pound. He came in at 206, former heavyweight. He has a hard time getting down to 205. It makes sense. Ion Cutelaba, though, absolutely jacked. My man is on the goods again. And that's, guys, I think this card has so many questions for me. If you missed my Monday podcast, I talked about it on Monday. This card very specifically, you've got a lot of people who have been in trouble with USADA before, and USADA's gone now. So I'm very curious what we're going to see, because we saw some real in shape bodies at this face-off and weigh-ins today. I feel like the UFC has really gone entertainment over everything recently, and they are going to let these fighters get away with a little bit more than they used to. I don't think we're going to hear very many positive drug tests here moving forward now that USADA is out of the picture. They tried to rein in guys like Conor McGregor, and that got them ousted from the organization. So I work like these guys specifically, Ion Cutelaba and Felipe Lind, have both had some issues, and they looked absolutely phenomenal on the scales today. I mean, Felipe Lind, he did need the box of shame to make weight, but that's because he's a big dude. He got out of there and he looked great. He had like an 8-pack for a heavyweight. That's hard to do. He obviously rehired his doctor, and I have faded the absolute crap out of Felipe Lind's because when he got to the UFC, he wasn't on the goods anymore, and that's how he won the PFL. Is he was on everything. Gets over to the UFC, doesn't have his doctor, and gets bodied by people, and he's old. So those combination of things had me betting against Felipe Lins pretty successfully. Doesn't look like that's the case anymore. He's found the fountain of youth. He probably rewound the clock a good 3 years at this point, and he's in stupid shape coming into this fight. This was a really good face-off. Return of the Hulk, baby. Ion went full green at the face-offs and the weigh-ins. I love it when he does that. I can't imagine the amount of work to get all that paint off you after that, but it's a fun persona. I love when he goes full Hulk. Lins was really weird at the face-offs, though. He was like nervous energy, or I'm not sure if he was trying to play with Ion, but like he got down in a stance and was like bobbing and like ducking and like sticking his hand out and doing. I've never seen Felipe Lins do that at anybody before. It was really, really weird. I'm not sure if he's like insulted or if he was trying to match Ion's energy, or I don't know. Really strange situation with these two here. I kind of like the under 1.5 a little bit in this spot. It's minus 140, and you've got a pretty much a pick 'em here in this fight. It's ping-ponged back and forth all week. Both these guys have been even money at some point or another this week. Right now, Cutelaba is a minus 120 favorite. You can get even money on Felipe Lins, and believe it or not, I'm kind of leaning Lins. It really makes me feel sick to my stomach to say that. But Ion Cutelaba is a good hammer. He's a bad nail. We know this. So is Lins. But Lins is a guy that can strike long. He's a guy that can keep you off him. He's a guy that can keep his distance. And he also hits pretty dang hard. He's got decent boxing on him. Earlier in the week, I leaned towards Ion Cutelaba, but he really is kind of round one or bust. We've seen that from him time and time again. He goes out there, balls to the wall, and if he doesn't finish you early, he just kind of falls apart. The dude's got 12 TKO victories in the first, and both of his submissions come in the first as well. But then anytime he gets finished, like I know he gets finished in the first a lot as well, but I mean, like he's got TKO losses in the second, sub in both the second and the third. Like he's not a guy that's built to go long. He just goes hard. And that'll work against guys that you can break. Now, Felipe Lins off the juice, I absolutely think is somebody that you can break. But he's big, he's long, he's in shape, he's been doing really well. He's on a 3-fight win streak right now. And we've seen Ion Cutelaba multiple times run face first into punches, leave his neck out there and get guillotined. I mean, hell, we cashed a sexy Johnny Walker by sub. I think it was a 14-1 ticket because we knew Ion Cutelaba would leave his neck out when he was diving in for a takedown. I think Felipe Lins can probably survive the first, 3 minutes of this fight and then kind of turn the tables and find his opening on Ion. But if he doesn't, I could see him getting taken down, and he's a little bit chinny. He's a little bit older. He could get pounded through the canvas early. So under 1.5 really kind of seems like the sweet spot here for me. I'd be playing violence, if anything. And I'm ping-ponging on the money line, guys. I'm not betting a side on this one. That's all it comes down to. You could live bet this one because you'll be able to see what Ion looks like. You'll be able to see who's got the better doctor. About 2-3 minutes into this fight, whoever starts to fade first, just bet against them. I mean, if Felipe Lins gets taken down, like you probably can just smash Ion at that point. But if he's able to stuff the first takedown or two and his mouth isn't hanging open or anything like that, it's Lins all day. He's going to find the button. He's going to put Ion down. Craig in the chat here likes Ion money line. Good luck, Craig. And you're asking for the 7-unit bet. And it's just those the second and third fights of the night here. We're parlaying up Asu Almabayev with Robles Despania. It's coming out to about minus 200 at this point. So, we can talk about a couple of options for things you might want to add as far as a third leg if you want a better price tag, so you're not laying 2-1 still on that parlay. Something like Ion Cutelaba doesn't go the distance. I see that's like a minus 400 parlay piece leg, but that'll bring the price down to like a minus 140, so it's more playable for you. And I've got a hard time seeing this fight go more than 2 rounds, to be frank. All right, everybody. Do me a favor, everybody. Again, we're on Home of Fight, baby. Hit that like button for me. Let's let everybody know. We've got over 50 live viewers here on the show, and I'm excited to talk to you all about this stuff here today. Pedro Munoz takes on Kyler Phillips. Both guys made 135 pounds here today. Munoz, business as usual. No issues for him on the scale today. Kyler Phillips, another one of these guys that's a drug abuser. He's already popped for some banned substances, and I got to wonder what version of Kyler Phillips are we getting, because he's a guy with some cardio issues. He slows down a little bit in his fights. He uses a ton of lateral movement. In his last fight against Hani Barcelos, he was not looking good. He was getting tired deep in that fight, and I thought there was a chance Hani could do enough to catch him or win that fight, but he was able to squeak it out. That's the sign of a guy that knows how to win a fight, and you do like to see that. But without the right sauce, and that's where I wonder whether or not he is on that sauce this week, Kyler Phillips could be in trouble against a guy like Pedro Munoz, who starts fast, chops your legs apart, and can keep that up for 15 minutes. So this is a very, very intriguing fight. I actually almost parlayed Kyler Phillips when I first looked at this one, just like whiplash reaction. Oh, of course, it's Kyler Phillips. And then the longer I sat with it, the more I'm like, holy crap, like Pedro Munoz is in this thing. If he slows down Phillips at all with the leg kicks early, we've seen that be extremely effective for him. And Kyler Phillips, by the way, is not that much bigger than Pedro Munoz. That was a thing where, again, in my head, I'm kind of seeing like a similar Munoz O'Malley height difference in my brain. But then when they face off, Munoz is so freaking thick. Phillips is just a little bit taller than him, but it's not that big of a gap as far as their size goes. And Pedro Munoz being one of the smaller guys in the division, if he's not that small, he's not going to struggle with the reach that much. And that being the case, I think he could do some damage here in this spot, man. And this money line also is coming down, by the way. Pedro Munoz was up and over plus 200 earlier in the week. He's plus 190, plus 185 now. So it's creeping its way down. One thing that I found interesting is the Munoz plus 3.5. Now, you've got to have DraftKings for this. I don't know of any other books. There might be a couple out there that do like the spread betting. And that's where you actually factor in the judges' scorecards. So when this thing goes to a decision, if it's a 30-27 unanimous decision victory on all three judges' scorecards, giving all 3 rounds, the plus 3.5 loses, right? So if Pedro either gets finished or if it's a unanimous 30-27 on the judges' scorecards, Kyler wins that bet, you lose your plus 3.5. But if it's a split decision, or if Munoz gets 1 round on all 3 judges' scorecards, so it's a close fight, but it's like a 29-28 on all 3, that's when the plus 3.5 cashes. Obviously, if Pedro wins the fight or if he finishes the fight, the plus 3.5 still cashes. So it gives you just a little bit of wiggle room on fights that you expect to be close without needing to straight up win them. If it's close on the judges' scorecards, you still cash a bet. And that's that Pedro Munoz plus 3.5. It's minus 145. I actually think that's decent. If you've got DraftKings, that's a play that might make my final card here on this one, because I think there's a decent amount of times where Pedro Munoz wins round 1 and or round 3. So like if he starts fast, he can take round 1. If Phillips slows down, he can take round 3. And that's all we need. All we need is 1 round. And then if you've got a 29-28 either way, we're still cashing our spread bet ticket. I'm interested in Pedro Munoz in this spot. I'm not sure I've got the cojones to call him outright, but this is a very much dog or pass situation from a betting line, in my opinion. Let's see here. Jared saying, do you have any rules when it comes to parlays? For me, I won't parlay unless it's plus money because I'm increasing the risk and I want the reward to reflect that. Completely understand that, Jared. Completely understand that. When it comes to parlays, the goal for me is always plus money. I do have the same thought as you that I want plus money. However, I do also try to go for low hanging fruit. And that's what I'm doing in this case. Like I ponied up and laid the minus 180-ish that it was when I made the parlay, because I don't know. There's a couple of other legs. This card is really sketchy when it comes to other available legs. Like you could do the over 2.5 in this fight, the Pedro Munoz fight. It's minus 330. You could add the over 2.5 to that parlay to get it down to an even money. It's minus 104 if you wanted to do that. See that you could add that third leg. I try to keep it 2 legs. I try to look for plus money, but when it comes to sports betting, for me, man, rules are meant to be broken. Like every once in a while, there's going to be a rule that you've got to just throw out, because if you lock yourself into something, you're going to miss opportunities that otherwise you could have taken. And that's kind of what I did here on this one. Let's see. James here saying Pedro's going to knock him out in the 3rd. Kyler gas tank is so suspect. Remember me Monday. All right, James. All right. We got you down. We got you down here. Pedro Munoz for the upset. Good luck, man. Good luck. What is Pedro round 3 TKO? Let's take a look. Let's just see. Let's see what they're giving us here for that. Pedro Munoz by KO round 3. Holy crap. That's 40-1. Bro, on a card where they're just squeezing the life out of props. That's a big number. Pedro Munoz, KO, TKO, round 3, 40-1. Maybe not such a bad look. And, if you want him to jump guillotine and you like that sub prop, those are big fat numbers as well. So, hey, that right there is a find. Maybe we have to take a little stab and tail something like that. That's absolutely wild. All right. Next up, we've got Rafael Dos Anjos. He's taking on Mateus Gamrot. Both fighters weighed in at 156 pound. Rafael Dos Anjos rocked in the sunglasses. You guys know that's a cardinal rule. You're not allowed to wear sunglasses, in my opinion, but he looks so damn cool doing it. I can't get too mad at Rafael Dos Anjos. He's a legend. He's a Hall of Famer. He's earned the right to wear sunglasses at this stage of his career if he actually wants to. He looked fantastic, folks. Rafael Dos Anjos is a guy that I said probably was the best 155er of all time. Now, I think he was also a bit of a USADA victim. I think when he was in his prime and he took the belt in the first place and we were supposed to get Conor versus RDA, I'm going to get shit for this, but I swear to you guys, I would have bet so much on RDA to beat Conor McGregor. The fact that he can strike and grapple with how well-rounded he is, we saw what happened with Khabib. Obviously, RDA is not Khabib, but I think in his prime, he would have beaten Conor McGregor. We'll never get that fight. I keep hoping, even now that they're old and busted and, they're both getting to the end of their run, I still would love to see that fight. But I think RDA really was the man back in the day. And I think when they took away the IVs, he cut so much weight. He's one of these tweener guys where if they made like a 165-pound division, I think RDA would run that thing because he's too small for 170, but he's too big for 155. And when they removed the allowance of those IVs, he couldn't make 155 anymore. He almost killed himself trying to get down there. And it's taken him until this point in his career where he can actually go ahead and get the technology that he needed to go ahead and get on weight for 155 pounds. Now, again, USADA's gone. I think RDA looked fantastic today. I haven't seen him weigh in at 155 and look that good in a long time. So I am hyped up about how RDA looked coming into today. Mateus Gamrot had a little bit of lobster face. He always does. He gets red in the face every single time, but he looked good. No real issues for him there. This was a fantastic face-off. RDA filled up good, folks. Like from the sucked out on the scale RDA to the ceremonial face-offs, he looks like he weighs 180 pounds at the face-offs. Boy is broad. He is thick, and his abs are like, they're coming like a full inch out of his body. He is full of muscle right now, pumped up and ready to go. Gamrot, slight height advantage, but nothing crazy because RDA is a guy that's been fighting up at 170. He's a big 155er. So even though Gamrot is slightly taller, RDA, I think, is the more thick and physical full fighter in this spot. Very intense face-off, but respectful. That's kind of your classic RDA staple. You guys are going to call me nuts. You guys are absolutely going to probably like relentlessly mock me for this one. I already bet Rafael Dos Anjos. Now, I bet RDA at plus 340. It looks like that number's coming down just a little bit. I'm seeing plus 320. I've got one unit on him. And guys, this is that one where like, I am so tempted to. I bet usually most of my plays are 1 unit or it's like laying minus 140 to win one. Like I try to keep it 1 unit because if you do 2 and 3 units too often, you just kind of snowball and everything becomes a bigger bet. And now your standard bet is much larger and the swings are bigger and that gets scary and you can have big losing nights, which I actually did already a couple times in 2024, trying to avoid that. I am tempted to go to RDA for a second unit. I really am. I don't believe in Gamrot. I don't believe in Gamrot at all. This is a 33-year-old fighter who was the actual freaking backup for the UFC title, and he made weight. He was the backup, and the UFC went, you know what? Nah, let's not do that. And they literally didn't give him the title shot. They sent him back to go fight more people. And who did they give him? They gave him Benny Dariush, and he got handled in that fight. He got hurt. He couldn't hit takedowns. It was awful. And now he's got to like reset and is not at a title spot where he was just a couple of months ago. He takes a short notice fight against Jalen Turner, which I will die on the hill that Jalen Turner won. I mean, Jalen Turner had this guy hurt and wobbled multiple times. He was sprawling and brawling well, and Gamrot just doesn't score. Like, he doesn't hit you with anything. He doesn't do any damage. He's like grappling first and only. And then he fought Rafael Fiziev. Now, that's the one where it's really supposed to be like, all right, get out of here. This is going to be like the trajectory reset for Rafael. He's going to go ahead and win this fight and get back in the contender circle. Blows his leg out. Like, I really believe the UFC's done everything they can to kind of bury this guy. It reminds me of John Fitch. You know, if you guys are old enough to remember John Fitch back in the day, he did no damage to anybody. And unless you were an absolute scrub, he would submit you if you were terrible, but that was the only way he was finishing anybody. He was the most boring decisionator of all time, but he was the second best guy in the weight class. They gave him a title shot. He lost it, and they said, oh, my, thank God. So they gave him nobodies for the rest of his career, and they just tried to bury him with bad matchups. It became to the point that he was undeniable eventually because he cleaned out the division, and they couldn't justify giving anybody else a title shot over him because he was that good. That's kind of what Mateusz Gamrot feels like here to me. His wrestling is just so solid. His pace is so good. They don't want this guy with a belt around his waist because they don't want him to slow down a division or he can't sell pay-per-views because he's not fun or exciting and no one wants to watch him lay on people for 25 straight minutes because as a title holder, that's what he would do. So he's 30 years old and they're trying to knock him down a peg or two and they're giving him every single fight that they can to try to set him up and he skates by on a split. And then the duty beat gets injured. And so like they're going, no, that's not a real win. You got to fight somebody else. Nah, that's not a real win. You got to fight somebody else. So like, they just keep on like pushing the envelope with him a little bit. Did you guys hear that? Zelda's with me. Zelda's calling her shot. RDA, baby. I'm already in on the money line. Zelda agrees with me. Rafael Dos Anjos, dogs are barking at UFC 299. I can't wait. Glenbot in the chat saying RDA TKO 20-1. Now that's a bold take right there. I actually looked at some of the props here for this one because I was kind of having the same thought that I'm like, well, the problem for me is RDA doesn't knock anybody out. RDA has 5 KO victories in his entire MMA career, not UFC career, entire MMA career. He's a specialist when it comes to his grappling, right? He's got 11 submission wins. His striking is solid. Deep in round 5, he was piecing up Vicente Luque on the feet, actually had Vicente Luque shooting takedowns on him. So don't get me wrong. He hits hard enough. He's decent enough at striking. He absolutely could maybe do something like that. But I don't think Gamrot shot enough to actually get like knocked out by someone like RDA. He was able to survive the offense of Jalen Turner. I think it's going to be a decision. I could see like maybe if Gamrot slips up, he could get like a club and sub or something like that. And that's where I looked at submission. RDA TKO is 20-1. I don't like it as much. Sub is 16-1 though. And like I said, this guy's got 11 wins by submission. I still think this fight is probably going the distance. I think it's going to be RDA by like split decision. It's going to be close. At reality, guys, you've got to remember, we're talking about taking a shot as a 3-1 dog. We are not saying, oh, he should be favored. There's a difference here, right? At plus 325 odds, that means you've got a 23% implied probability to win. I think this is much closer to a 50-50 fight than it is a 75-25, and that's why I'll bet RDA. I'm not telling you it's a lock, club somebody over the head, take their money, and run to the sports book with it. That's not what I'm saying. I think it's good value at the number. I don't think he should be this big of an underdog. I think it's a decision. I wouldn't mind playing some of those squeaky decision props though, because you can get like the split decision and stuff like that, and that's where it gets real greasy. Fight to be won by split is like plus 350 if you just want to take the split by itself. RDA to win by split is 14-1. There you go. And if you're like one judge saw it for Gamrot because there's lots of grappling transitions and they don't know how to score those, but RDA gets his hand raised 14-1. I could get behind that. All right, let's go here. Kyle saying, answer your phone. It's okay. It's just my wife, Kyle. It's all right. She was trying to call me. She's home now. We're good. I'll talk to her after the show. Don't sweat it. All right. Let's see here. Glenbot saying positional ground TKO. Hey, I don't hate it. I really don't. I don't. Paul saying plus 550 for the decision. And here you go. Raw Dog plus 3.5 on the spread is plus 120. And right there, that's a good look. I don't mind that whatsoever because I think at least somebody's going to give RDA one round, right? Like if I think it's going to go to a split decision, I think he's going to win at least one of these rounds. And they're definitely favoring the damage over the control. The judges are these days. So if RDA is scoring more on the feet and then he's just getting controlled a little bit on the mat, and he's the one sprawling and brawling. Like I said, I feel like Jalen Turner should have been the one to get the nod in that fight. This fight is probably going to play out very, very similarly where he's doing more work on the feet. And I think the judges will recognize and probably give him the fight based on damage in this spot. Not that I know that he's necessarily going to hurt him, but you know what I mean. All right, everybody, we got to move along here. We spent a little too long on that one, but that does deserve the old tinfoil cap there, though. RDA, big dog of the week, second biggest dog on the card. Let's freaking go. All right. And you've got Macy Barber taking on Caitlyn Chookagian up next, 125 pounds. Macy Barber looking good, very relaxed. It seems like she's really getting this whole weight cut thing down, which was tough for her a little earlier in her career. Caitlyn Kriminara, Chookagian, whatever you want to do here. Big flex. Really good shape. She looked really great on the scales today, I'll be honest with you. And she's also got a decent size advantage here. I'm nervous about this one, guys. I am nervous about this one. So I love Benoit Saint Denis, and you guys know that. We're not there yet. We'll get to that. But I was looking for a parlay leg for Benoit Saint Denis. I think he wins, obviously, and I am a little allergic to these big, nasty, chalky lines. You guys know that. I want even money. I want plus money. That's where I'm at. But I do think he wins. It's my boy's time, right? I got my futures bet riding on him. I got to bet Benoit Saint Denis, but I don't want to lay minus 205. So I'm like, damn, I need a parlay piece. But I already parlayed the two big guys that I really like. That's the Despaigne and Asu. So where am I going to get that other leg? I ended up going with Macy Barber because if you think about it, like now my parlay, I've got plus money. I got plus 104 on Macy, assuming both guys win. And then I've got plus 104 on Benoit Saint Denis, assuming Macy wins. Like, that's kind of how I think of it, where I'm like, all right, like it gets the number more where I want it to be, assuming I'm correct on both of these. However, I'm a little worried because Caitlyn Chookagian really is like so much bigger. She's so much longer. She's got such a good technical style. She knows how to keep people at distance, at range. We're in the big cage. That plays into her hands. I think Macy can have some wrestling success. I think Macy hits harder. I know Macy hits harder. And so I do think there's definitely some opportunity for her to win this fight in different realms here. But if Caitlyn does her thing where she just jabs and runs, we could be in trouble because there's a chance Barber's just never going to be able to track her down in there. And if she can't hit takedowns, or if she can't get control time, or if she can't do damage from ground and pound control positions, then she could just get outworked on the feet and out-volumed on the feet. It's death taxes and Chookagian by decision. And that's kind of my problem here, is this sets up very well for exactly that. Now, Caitlyn Chookagian by decision is plus 215, and that'd be a not bad little hedge there. You might want to, if you're doing the parlay with me, you might want to sprinkle a little bit on that plus 215. That way you're covering both sides of your ass. But the big thing that worries me here, and this is where I got to be a little bit careful. I'm not trying to be, obviously disparaging. I don't want to come across the wrong way or anything like that. But Caitlyn came out this week, and during her fighter interviews, she was talking about some of the struggles that she's been going through personally. Apparently they tried like in vitro fertilization, that kind of thing. They're trying to have a baby, and she had 2 miscarriages. That's awful. As a parent, I sympathize. That's terrible. I can't imagine putting yourself through that and going through that kind of a thing. But you guys also know we have made decent amount of money fading like new moms when they come back to the UFC, because that baby situation, it changes your body makeup and chemistry. And those who do come back successfully usually don't do it quickly. It takes a little bit longer to get back to where you were before you took that break. And some of them never recover at all. They'll come back for one more fight to prove they can, and then they hang it up. So like it's a whole life transition when you're going from being a fighter to being a mom. And not everybody's cut out for doing both, and not everybody's cut out to come back from it. And that's okay. I've got a stay-at-home wife myself. Like, so I'm really not trying to like insult anybody. So Caitlyn Chookagian's finally hit the point in her life where she's ready to move on. She's ready to be a mom. She's ready to step away from fighting and go have a baby. So when you take that mental decision, to me, that's almost like the R word. That's almost like the retirement. You're done with this, at least for a while. You're going to step away and you're going to focus on something else. Now, she put her body through that process of in vitro, not once, twice. And I believe in her interview, she said that was harder on her body than fighting was. And she's trying to take this fight to shake off the cobwebs. First and foremost, that stuff's expensive. Like going through IVF is expensive as shit. Like having babies in general is expensive as shit. So like, is this a paycheck? She could be coming back to just kind of clear the cobwebs and being like, you know what? I need to get away from all this stuff. There's a lot of emotional things going on. I just want to go punch somebody. And I can understand that. I go to the boxing gym, and when I'm fed up and I want to just hit something, that's what I go do. It makes sense. And she knows this. That's what she's good at. But I'm not sure she's 100%. I'm not sure she's sharp. I'm not sure where her body is after going through that stuff. So all these questions are things that I'm like, you know what? That's enough for me. That's enough for me to go ahead and trust Macy Barber with my money. The UFC also knows what they've got in Macy Barber. She's 25 years old. She's getting better every time we see her. She's a rising prospect in the division. They keep giving her these chances to hurdle over people to advance her spot in the rankings. She's gonna be a top-end fighter eventually. She's gonna be a stud in this division eventually, and they keep giving her those shots to take that next step. Do I want her to go against Caitlyn Chookagian? No, I don't, because she's the freaking prospect killer. But if there was ever a time where you could get one over on Miss Caitlyn Chookagian, this would be the fight where that's probably something possible, because she's probably not 100% coming into this one. And mentally speaking, she may not be dialed in for this one either. So yes, I've parlayed up Miss Maycee Barber, my girl. We're going to run it back with her one more time. The number's gross. I don't like minus 200 going against Caitlyn Chookagian. Like I said, maybe a small hedge on Chookagian by decision to make sure you're covered there, because I don't see a world where Caitlyn finishes Maycee Barber. Maycee Barber could finish Chookagian. She can get the crucifix position, which, by the way, I've noted in some of her training materials, she's been showing off that she's going to specifically the crucifix, which is a spot where we saw Caitlyn get caught and finished in the past. I'm hoping we get a late round TKO here from Maycee Barber. Keep it out of the hands of the judges. Next up, you got Jailton Almeida taking on Curtis Razor Blaydes. Almeida 241, and you've got Razor Blaydes 257. So we've got a 16-pound weight difference here on this one. No problems for either guy. Jailton Almeida, a guy that makes weight easily, obviously up at heavyweight. Still seems like he could cut down to 205 if you really wanted to. He's one of these smaller guys. Speed advantage does him well, so can't complain about it. But you guys know I'm not exactly sold on this guy. They size up very well. Both guys kept their distance. This was very calm, very measured. And this line has been ping-pong and back and forth all week. We've gone Blaydes minus 115, Almeida minus 115. Everybody's got a hot take on this fight. I did bet Curtis Razor Blaydes, okay? I did go ahead and bet Curtis Blaydes. And in fact, I threw up a bet on Bet Openly. You guys know my sponsor, the peer-to-peer betting. I gave everybody a better number on Jailton Almeida. I said, come on, I'll put my money where my mouth is. I'm not only betting on this one with the bookie, but I'll bet with you too. You've got a chance to steal some of these Clint dollars and just take me heads up. That bet got taken and accepted, so good luck everybody out there that got a piece of me. But I just have never believed all the way in Jailton Almeida. Now, he's a stud grappler. There's a big question mark as far as what Curtis is able to do as far as defensive grappling goes. But if anybody was ever going to stuff a double leg from Jailton Almeida, I think it would be a guy like Chris Curtis, or not Chris Curtis. Geez, it would be a guy like Chris Curtis. No, but I think it's a guy like Curtis Blaydes that would be able to handle the grappling of Jailton Almeida and come out okay on the other side of it. Hell, if Blaydes decides to start the wrestling process first, I think he could end up on top of Almeida. Now, not that Almeida is going to gas or anything like that. He's a jiu-jitsu guy. They love being on their backs. They're at home from their backs. They'll look for sweeps. They'll look for subs. They're fine from there. But those minutes, I think, will be won by Blaydes being on top. So it's a pick 'em fight. And I see a lot of people just piling in hand over fist on Jailton Almeida. In fact, from what I understand, as far as the books are concerned, it's one of the biggest liabilities they've got. I mean, Dave Mason from Bet Online, he posts out like what their biggest bet counts are and what their biggest hold percentages are. And for me personally, I know I'm not the best market analyst or anything like that. I'm not trying to be. But when the bookies are like, hey, we got a pick 'em fight right here. Pick 'em. Even money. You make the choice. Go ahead. And you've got like 80% of people on one side and the line doesn't move. I don't want to be on that side. I really don't. I don't want to be on the side where the bookies are not respecting the amount of money that's coming in, because to me, that just screams that the bookies are like, no, we're fine. We're good. Like, because their whole plan is to balance the books technically, right? Like that's how bookies make money, is they make sure they've got a level amount. You pay the extra juice, which is why Bet Openly is awesome. And they just make money for free no matter who wins the fight. That's how it works. But every once in a while, they'll find a spot where they like a side better than the other. And they will set themselves up to need one side more than the other. Now, bookies can be wrong also, but those are the spots where it happens. It's on these pick 'em lines where everyone fights over it, but you end up with a massive majority on one side as opposed to the other, when at the end of the day, this is a 50-50 fight. I want to be on the minority side of that. I always do. And I think if anybody's going to stop Almeida at heavyweight, it's going to be Blaydes. I think Almeida is going to find more success down at 205, and I think he could cut himself back down to 205. We'll see what happens in this fight. I very well could be donating here. I got a bad line. I got Blaydes at minus 115. He's now the slight dog side of the equation, so I could get minus 105 at this point. You guys can duke this one out. This one is as much of a coin flip as anything on this card. And I'll be honest with you, I'm kind of bummed I made the bet in the first place, because I've been really trying not to bet coin flips this year. It's done good for me to avoid those coin flippy situations. And this one is the definition of a coin flip, and I steered right into it, and I feel bad about it. So I'm not going to cash out. We'll ride. we'll ride with Curtis Razor Blaydes. But I'll be honest with you, I don't feel great about it. Jared says, I want Blaydes to win because I'm a fan of his. I don't know. Still haven't figured out Jailton Almeida yet, honestly. Yeah, I mean, real. That's a legit look. Me as well, my guy. James is saying, what do you think about Blaydes round 3? Almeida gasses after getting pushed for 2 rounds straight. Yeah, that's the kind of thing that's possible. That's definitely something that is possible because we've seen Jailton Almeida and the amount of effort he exerts when he does get those takedowns. If that's something that fails with Curtis Blaydes, or if this ends up being a striking match, I trust Blaydes striking more than I trust Jailton Almeida's. It definitely could be something where he's finishing late. Paul is saying that Blaydes has been off for 11 months and fighting for 3 minutes in the last 2 years can't help. Yeah. I mean, that's probably not great, but man, have you seen the run of guys that he's gone up against? Like, I see people talking about Blaydes being chinny, and it's the hardest punchers in UFC history that have connected with him and put him down. You can't call that guy chinny. Put anybody else in those fights, and they're all getting knocked out too. So, like, I don't see him as being chinny or anything like that. There's definitely probably a little bit of a confidence concern. There's definitely a little bit of a ring rust concern. And that's why, frankly, like I said, I wish maybe I had just passed on this one altogether. But it is what it is. Like I said, ride or die. I'm on Curtis Blaydes here for this one. Next up, you've got Song Yadong taking on Petr Yan. Song came in at 136 pounds. Petr Yan came in at 135. Song face extremely sucked out. This is what I was talking about at the top of the show, though. You can't hold it against the guy. He is a huge 135er. This kid is massive for this weight class. Not only is he bigger than most of his opponents, but he's jacked, so he's broader than most of his opponents as well. Big kid for this weight class. Face is always sucked out, and he fills up very well afterwards, so he's going to perform just fine. Petr Yan, though, mouth was kind of hanging open a little bit at the weigh-ins. He's championship caliber, though, so another guy that looks like it might have been a little bit of a tougher cut than normal there for him, but I'm not going to count him out or anything because he had a bit of a tough cut. Good solid flex from Petr Yan. He's always in great shape. These guys had to get split up, at the ceremonial face-offs. Song tried to get in Jan's face and like touch him or some shit like that. So they had to be separated. Song slightly bigger, like I mentioned. Big dude for this weight class. I'm running it back with Song Yadong, you guys. I've already made the bet. I got minus 105, and it's just 1.05 units to win one here on Song Yadong. He is up to plus 105 now at this point, and the bigger that number gets, the more interested I am in doubling down because I felt like I should have got plus money on him in the first place. I waited until he was slightly minus money and then jumped in, unfortunately. So now that there's that plus number, I know it's just like 10 cents. It shouldn't matter, but it makes me want to go back and get some more of it here. I have made a living fading Petr Yan. This losing skid that he has been on, I've just complete blind faded Yan. I think every single fight that he's been in, and he's 1-4 in his last 5. So I've done very, very well. In fact, I've made some of the biggest numbers you've ever seen in this run. I bet Aljamain Sterling on the money line when he was like a plus 250 dog. I bet Aljamain by decision at plus 950. I bet Aljamain Sterling by split decision at 28-1. That was a massive night for me. Now, I actually think Jhon probably should have won that fight, but I cashed a hell of a ticket that night. I also bet the over to go with that, by the way. So just a gorgeous read from me where we quadrupled up on the exact same spot. Sean O'Malley, I didn't bet him live because I wasn't sure I believed in him yet. I'm sorry, I didn't bet him pre-flight because I wasn't sure I believed in him yet, but I bet him live. As soon as I saw that it was 1-1 going into 3, I said, you know what? I know who they're going to give this decision to. So I got in at like plus 190 or plus 200 on Sean O'Malley halfway through that fight. And then I absolutely smashed Merab when he was a 2-1 underdog. So I have made bank on the other side of Petr Yan. Now in this spot, Song is a pick'em price tag to this guy. So it's not quite the smash send it type of spot that you would think, right? If I was getting plus 180, I'd do it again, but I'm getting even money. So it's a bit more of a sketchy situation. I don't want to bury Petr Yan. I really don't. I'm a fan of his. People think I hate him. And like I said, I've just had success betting against him. It's not that I don't like the guy. But I got to wonder what his mental state looks like. I mean, he's 31 years old. He lost his title on a fluke. Now he's on a 3-fight skid. And in his last fight, he got dominated. I mean, those first 2 fights we mentioned, you could argue he was in those fights. You could argue he won those fights. But in that last fight against Merab, he got handled. He got absolutely handled by Merab. Now, everybody gets handled by Merab, but it can't help his mental state. A guy that went from being a champion to not being able to compete in his own division, right? He's getting older, and the wear and tear on his body's got to be a thing. He took a beating from Merab. He got rocked a bunch of times by Sean O'Malley. So I don't think he's like shot or anything like that at this point, but I do think he's lost a step. And Song Yadong is on the flip side of that. This kid just keeps getting better. He's only 26 years old. He's huge, like I mentioned. And Corey Sandhagen just came out and said that Song Yadong's the guy in the weight class that hit him the hardest out of everybody. So, guys, what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a sprinkle. I'm going to take a little flyer on Song Yadong by knockout. It's one of the few props on this card where I feel like they're giving you a little bit of okay money. Plus 500 for Song Yadong to go ahead and win by KO. I got the money line at minus 105, and I might double dip with the money line now that it's a plus money number again. Also, if you guys didn't watch the Sharp Action Report, I get together with my boy Andrew from Superbook Sports. It's right here. Hit the live tab and you'll be able to see it. We streamed that earlier today. Check that show out. The big guy from Superbook Sports is also on Song Yadong. Superbook is very much booking to make sure they need Song in this spot, so they're writing all the money they can. So here's what I'm talking about. They're writing all the money they can at a pick'em price tag on Pereira. So even though it's a pick'em, they're like, come on, give me Jhon money. That's what they're doing. They're setting it up so they need Song to win in order to turn a profit on Saturday. I want to be on the side with the bookie in this one. So I might double down on Song Yadong. I'm going to bet that KO prop at plus 500. I think he might be the first one to finally do it because, and this is where, again, there's no proof or evidence for this thing, right? I don't have anything to show to support this. But Petr Yan in this spot, his last couple fights, he always starts slow. Petr Yan is a guy that downloads for a round, right? He figures out your timing and your movement and your speed, and then he makes you pay over the course of the fight. So he's fine taking that first round and a half off because he uses it to win rounds 2, 3, 4, and 5. And that's just what he does is he ratchets it up the deeper the fight goes. But he's lost a couple of split decisions doing that. He's lost a couple of fights now, slowing down and taking his time. And because of that, I think he's going to start faster. And if you start faster and you go out there guns blazing and you're not being your usual technical self and you go barn burner with a guy like Song Yadong, Song's going to hit you back and Song's going to hit harder than you hit him. So I think there's going to be more opportunity for Song to land a big bomb. The final piece of the puzzle, you listen to the interviews and Petr Yan isn't talking like Petr Yan anymore. Like he gets up on the mic and he's like, I got to win this fight to prove it to myself that I still belong. I mean, shit, like that's not the kind of thing you want to hear from a fighter. Now I get a little beaten up after 2 weeks of losing and gambling. And I'm like, shit, I shouldn't have a podcast anymore, but I'm not a professional fighter. I'm not a professional gambler. So like, it's okay for me to question myself when these guys start second guessing themselves like that. I don't want to be on that side. So yes, Song Yadong, we ride. All right. And one of my biggest bets of the year last year as a big underdog, not a big underdog, a small underdog, but as an underdog last year, Song came through for me. Song's been good to me. Fading Petr Yan has worked for me for the last couple of years. We're just going to keep doing it. If it's not broke, don't fix it. My guy, Nigel Lee in the house. What's going on? Money, bank, locks. My guy, welcome. Thank you very much for being here. And I see you, Travis Tarr, there in the chat hanging out as well. Glenn bought 5,000. You've been here for a while. I don't need to say you again. It's okay. You deserve the double shout out, Glenn. You really do. All right. Next fight up, we have got Gilbert Burns. He's taking on Jack Della Maddalena. Burns 171 pounds. Jack Della 170 on the dot. Burns looked good. No problem at all from him today. And he's not even doing the Cabbage Patch Kid hair thing. He got his hair done up. He's looking on point, man. Got those the braids where it's all like patterned out. Looks really good. Jack Della, looking good himself. No issues on the scales or anything like that. Honestly, he looked a little bit bored up there. Very business as usual. Coming in here, got his lunch pail. He's going to work. Jack's got a size advantage, guys. They face off in this spot, and this is the clear view of Gilbert Burns used to be a 155er. That's a big thing to me. I've always talked about that. I talked about that when Kamaru Usman was running things where I was just like, man, you look at his resume and it's all 155ers that came up to 170. There's no real 170-pound bodies that he's been beating, and Gilbert's one of those guys. He's made a home at 170. He's still an elite athlete up at 170, but naturally, he's the smaller guy. I've got the under 2.5 in this spot. Now, as you guys damn well should know at this point, home of fight, Gilbert Burns is our guy. He's one of the, I think he's one of the owners, partial owner here, but he's in the Discord. Speaking of which, the Discord link will be in the description of this thing. You guys all got to come hang out. I haven't done the Discord thing ever. People have been asking me to start my own Discord for a long time, and I just kind of never got around to doing it. And then Pub wanted me to do theirs, and I never really got into it. I'm very involved in the Home of Fight Discord, and I'm going to be moving forward. So there's a link. Jump in the Discord, join us, come hang out, talk fights. There's a free Discord where you can kind of hang out and talk with everybody. And then, of course, if you guys want to buy picks, not mine because I give mine out for free, obviously, but some of the other experts, if you want to buy picks, there's an option to upgrade your Discord. And Derek Brunson's in there. Gilbert Burns is in there. So definitely come hang out and hang with us. But I can't come on here and talk about how I'm fading Gilbert Burns when he's part of our team, right? Like, he's part of our team. He's our boy. I'm rooting my ass off for him. But I think the under makes sense here in this spot because we've seen what happens when Jack Della ends up on his back. We've seen him in that damn arm triangle position time and time again. Gilbert Burns obviously knows about that. And he's a world-class BJJ player. He's not some wrestler scrub that knows how to choke people out. He will find that position and he will tap Jack Della Maddalena if he gets it. Now, on the flip side of this thing, if the size plays into this, if Jack doesn't have as bad of takedown defense as everyone thinks, or if he's been working on that takedown D and he's a lot better at that since his last fight, this fight could look pretty bad on the feet because I think Jack Della has a very, very large striking advantage in this spot. So on the ground, I expect Burns to finish. On the feet, I kind of expect Jack to finish. Under 2.5, that's the move. I like that spot. I played it pretty big, and that's probably my second favorite spot on the card. Next up, you've got Kevin Holland taking on Michael Venom Page. We got the debut going here, folks. 170 pounds for both guys in this spot. Kevin Holland, weird today. You know, they call him Big Mouth because he's always talking, he's always smiling, he's always having a good time. He's stone cold up there today. It's one of those moves where it's like, oh man, like I talk about Jairzinho Rosenstruik. When he comes in with a chip on his shoulder, when he comes in angry, he wins. Like that guy, when he takes it seriously and he feels like he's been disrespected, he fights the right way to win. But if he comes in and he's buddy and you play with him, like then he's going to lose like he always does. Kevin Holland is a similar situation where I'm so used to this guy being jovial and fun and goofy. He's not doing that this time. I think he learned a lesson from his last fight against Wonderboy, and I think he's taking this fight very, very seriously. Michael Venom Page, very confident smile, solid flex up there today. He did his classic like snake hand thing. Kevin Holland like ate the snake with his own hand. That was actually pretty funny. But this was a good face-off. MVP is slightly taller, slightly longer, so that's kind of Kevin Holland's thing, is to be the long, lanky guy. He can hit you from anywhere where you can't quite touch him. He's going to have a tough time with a guy like MVP because MVP is going to one-up him in that height and reach advantage situation here going into this fight. Guys, I haven't bet this one. I haven't bet it. I've been leaning towards MVP basically all week because I feel like it's a lot of what happened when Chandler made his UFC debut. I faded the crap out of Chandler. I had a big bet on Hooker because I was like, no, this guy's not that great, and he's coming over from a lower organization, and he's not going to make it at the top end of the UFC's division. And he ended up doing fine, right? Like, he's competitive. He's here. He fits. He didn't win a whole bunch. He's going to get sacrificed to Conor. Is what it is. But that first fight, they set you up to get the win, right? That's what the UFC is doing here. They called Big Mouth because they know he'll come in and he'll put on a fun fight. He'll put on the perfect fight for Michael Venom Page to show off what he can do. Put him on a stage, give him a chance to win, let him be flashy, have a fun fight. That's exactly what this is. So I'm tempted to bet Michael Page in this spot. However, I respect the skill set of Kevin Holland. He's long, he hits hard, he is fast, he's a BJJ black belt. He never uses his grappling, but if he did, he'd be way more dangerous. And in a spot where he doesn't want to get disrespected by little bro coming from another organization, I could see him taking this fight a whole hell of a lot more seriously. And if he does that, then it's not as clean cut. If it's a 15-minute kickboxing match, I favor Michael Venom Page. If Holland is serious enough to use that grappling, I think he's justifiable here at this minus 135 price tag. Too many questions. Too many questions for me. I'm not getting involved from a money standpoint on this fight. And it's the same thing with the total, because I feel like Michael Venom Page can beat the brakes off Kevin Holland the same way that Thompson did. And if he does that, he could get a TKO finish. If Holland grapples, I could see him getting a dominant position on Page and catching something on the ground because he's a far better grappler than him. And this thing could go under. You're getting plus 135 on the under. So I don't want to lay minus 175 for this thing to go 15 if they're just out there having fun, because there's a lot of ways one of these guys could find their way to a finish in this fight. I kind of lean under, kind of lean Holland after seeing him at the face-off, and that wavering back and forth, I pass. Anytime I feel that way, I just pass. So let's go with Holland. Final answer, Holland and under is what we're going to go ahead and say. Let's see. Christian asking how much units on the JDM fight. So I got minus 150. I went 3 units to win 2 on the minus 150 line. We beat that one ever so slightly. I think it's minus 160 now. So I have to lay like 3.2 to win 2 on that under at this point. But that's what I'm doing in that spot. I'm a little bit more confident in it than most of the other plays. So I'll chalk up a little bit to go ahead and win 2 units instead of just looking to win 1 on that spot. All right, everybody, here we go. Co-main event time. We're almost wrapped up. Again, this is Home of Fight. Subscribe, follow my stuff here if you guys haven't already. This is where we're going to be moving forward and hit that like button for me, please. Dustin Poirier takes on my guy, Benoit Saint-Denis. We've got 156 for DP, 155 for BSD, and Dustin Poirier rocking the sunglasses today. Weird look. Because he's another one of these guys. He's a Hall of Famer. He's earned it. That's fine, but he doesn't do that. Weird. No, he looked great. He's in good shape. He always is. No problem. Championship caliber. Benoit Saint-Denis, on the other hand, crazy eyes. I love it. I love that he has embraced the personality a little bit and does the psycho face now when he gets up there. He's got an 8-pack of abs. This guy's massive. He is so freaking jacked at 155. I love it. BSD has a decent height advantage in this spot. He's a monster. And Dustin Poirier looks nervous. He's out there like bobbing and weaving and moving, and like he can't stand still when this is a weird spot where like DP, I think, knows he's going to be on the retirement cycle after this fight, but he also knows he's being thrown to somebody in this spot. So I don't know if he's nervous because he's not feeling 100%. And you listen to his interviews and he's talking about how every single fight could be his last. And I mean, I know that's a fine attitude to have, that like kill or be killed type of mentality. Like when I'm ready to hang it up, I'll hang it up type of thing. But he's getting to that point in his career where he's like, man, I don't even know if I'm going to fight again after this one. This could be it. Like that's the kind of thing where I don't want any part of that. He's a legend. He's a hell of a fighter. He's durable. Those leg kicks could be a very big problem for a guy like BSD that walks in extremely heavy on those legs. I could see the 5-round experience favoring a guy like Dustin Poirier. But at the end of the day, we've seen DP taken down. We've seen him struggle with grapplers. We've seen him give his back up time and time again. And there's very few people that didn't sink in that rear naked choke when he did that. I think Benoit Saint-Denis is going to hit him with some big, powerful shots. He's going to hurt him in there. He's going to track him down. And when he does, eventually, he'll get his hands on him. He'll drag DP to the ground. DP will give up his back. And Benoit Saint-Denis will look for a choke. Or whether he's just too big for him in there, pins him, wrist rides him, puts him down, and pounds him out. I think it's Benoit Saint-Denis inside the distance. I really do. This is a 5-round co-main event. It's a spotlight. It's a spot where Benoit Saint-Denis is going to get his opportunity to bust into the top 3, beating a name who's been there forever. And trust me, the UFC wants that. The UFC wants Benoit Saint-Denis to go ahead and get in there and win this fight. Like I said, I parlayed up Benoit Saint-Denis. I did tie him over to Macy Barber in this spot a little bit earlier. We're getting plus 104 on that parlay. There's a couple other pieces that I feel like you could parlay. I think most of them are actually totals. Let's see here. The Chookagian Barber over 2.5 is probably a decent one. The Gamrot Rafael dos Anjos over 2.5 is probably a good one. The Munoz Phillips over 2.5 is probably a good one. Obviously, there's chances for those fights to go under in some way, shape, or form, which is why I haven't necessarily parlayed them up myself. But those are good pieces if you're looking for a parlay piece. Or like Kutalaba and Linz doesn't go the distance, I think is an okay parlay piece. The Despania Perisian under 1.5 is probably a good parlay piece. So if you guys are looking for pieces like that, then that's what it is. I think it's going to be Benoit Saint-Denis by submission. I know he knocked out Frivola in his last fight, but I've always said that Frivola, as much as I love the guy, huge fan of Frivola, follows me on Twitter, his chin is not the best. Like we've seen him get chinned a couple of different times. If it wasn't for Poirier coming off of literally a KO loss by head kick in his last fight, I would say that his chin is really good. So the submission is really where he's struggled more, but now it's 3-3, right? He's got 3 KO losses and 3 submission losses. So it's probably about even. But I think Benoit Saint-Denis will have more success grappling in this spot, stay away from those leg kicks, use that physicality, grind on the smaller man, and eventually find the back and tap him out. So that's the prediction. Benoit Saint-Denis, 2nd round submission. He doesn't fight long, guys. Like if this fight gets into like the 4th and 5th rounds, I'll be honest with you, I think that favors Poirier pretty drastically. I don't like the God of War is a moment winner. He's a guy that comes in and he takes those big moments. He hits you with a huge shot that sends you flying across the cage. He taps you out and squeezes so hard that your head pops. That's what he does. If he's not getting those big, huge moments, he's probably losing the round. So I could see Dustin Poirier, kind of trying to stick and move and run, use those leg kicks, work the legs, keep moving, stay outside. But we just saw that game plan didn't work for a guy like Alexander Volkanovski, the absolute GOAT. He eventually got caught, and that's kind of what I think is going to happen here. I just think the youth and size eventually is going to be too much, and BSD will find his way to Poirier, and he will eventually put him down and put him out. All right. Main event time, everybody. Sugar Sean O'Malley takes on Marlon Chito Vera, 135 pounds. Both guys made championship weight on the dot. Sean O'Malley's very tall and long for this weight class. He was sucked out bad. Another guy that rocks the glasses, and I'll quit complaining about it because he does it every damn time. No emotion from Sean whatsoever. I actually think it was a bit of a tough weight cut for him here today. Like I mentioned, he's so tall, he's so lanky. It can't be an easy cut, but he does well. He makes it just fine, and it doesn't seem to impede his performance. Now, I do have questions about his gas tank, but that's more of the way he fights, I think, than his weight cut. So again, a slight little grain of salt there with that one. Marlon Vera, on the other hand, needed the box of shame, and he looked horrific. The man looked like he saw God. Like, he was absolutely sucked out. He looked disheveled, and especially with like the crazy waving beard and hair, he looked like a guy that had been, shelled up in a cave for a couple of weeks or something like that. He looked just awful. Now, he looked fine once they, had a chance to go ahead and hydrate back up. And we know Marlon Vera is a guy that's known extremely for his cardio. So as much as that was a bad, tough weight cut for him, I'm not holding it against him. I don't think it's going to be a problem for either guy. We've seen them both go long and go late in multiple fights. Bad weight cuts happen. And again, you can't bet against everybody that had a bad weight cut. You just can't. I think Vera has a decent cardio advantage over Sean O'Malley, just generally speaking. So even if he did have a tough weight cut, I'm not sure Sean O'Malley's the guy that would be able to take advantage of that problem. This was a great face-off. Both guys in there chirping and talking at each other. Both guys are really intense and ready to go. It's funny because this is another spot where I went, I've had a real good history of backing Sean O'Malley. I've made some decent money backing Sean O'Malley. In fact, I had a 5-unit bomb on him at over 2-1 odds to take the title from Aljamain Sterling, and what was just a picture-perfect matchup, and everybody felt like it was the worst matchup for him possible, when in fact it was the best matchup for him possible. Not sure how people didn't see that one. But Sean O'Malley, title holder, getting a rematch against the one guy that he lost to. And guys, I just don't think this is as cut and dry as people are making it out to be. Like, it's super weird to me. Obviously, you've got the Sean O'Malley fanboys, right? You've got the Sean O'Malley chest beaters who have been doing this since he got to the UFC, and they've been with him the whole time. But everybody else has been hating on Sean, has been calling him a fraud, has been betting against him, has been laying chalk price tags against him since he got here. I mean, you look at the Jhon fight. Everyone thinks he lost that fight, and they were all happy to parlay Petr Yan at over 2-1 odds against him. He squeezed by a split decision, but he ended up getting his hand raised. Aljamain Sterling was a massive favorite and undeserving, in my opinion, and he got knocked out by this kid. Like, it was a bad spot, and everyone was more than happy to lay the chalk price tag on him. Now that Marlon Vera is the opponent and Sean O'Malley is a minus 265, minus 275 favorite, everyone's happy to parlay up Sean O'Malley. Doesn't make sense. Goes from a 2-1 dog to a 2-1 dog to a 300 favorite. Make it make sense. Doesn't make sense to me. Guys, I think the top 5 of bantamweight, I don't know if this is a hot take or not. I think the top 5 of bantamweight should all be pick'ems. I really do. Like, if you put, okay, let me rephrase that. Merab should be favored over everybody in the top 5. Umar should be favored over everybody in the top 10. Everybody else is pick'ems. Like, it's so competitive at bantamweight that I don't think anybody should be a minus 300 favorite in these fights. So you've got Sean O'Malley, who fights long, who's got a hell of a right hand. He comes out fast, he comes out early, he moves well, and he's going to win 3-round fights a lot, because all he has to do is bank those first couple rounds. But like, you go back to that Jhon fight, and again, everybody felt like Jhon won that fight, right? Like, a lot of you cried robbery on your tickets when he lost that fight. O'Malley was huffing and puffing in round 3. He was like full cheeked, like blowing air out in those grappling situations, trying to keep the wind in his lungs, because he was completely exhausted after trying to look for the knockout a couple of times. He doesn't manage his gas super well, and he's not built to go long. He's built to hit a guy really hard and put them down. I worry about this guy in a 25-minute fight. Marlon Vera on the other side of this thing is durable as shit. I don't think it's possible to knock this man out. I'll be incredibly impressed if Sean O'Malley actually is the first person to knock this guy out, because I think it's a feat that, quite frankly, is not an easy thing to do. But he gives away, very much like, Petr Yan, he starts slow. He lets you go fast. He gives up that first round, and it's not an issue because he just ramps up the intensity the deeper the fight goes. He continues to stay measured and even-keeled and walk you down and find the openings and just hurts people. He hits so damn hard, he starts hurting them the deeper the fight goes. I think this is a spot where very clearly we're going to see early rounds for Sean O'Malley, and if he doesn't finish, we're going to see later rounds for Chito Vera. This could come down to being like a 1-2, 3 and or a 4-5 swing round 3, and we get like a split decision, guys. I think this fight is going to be very competitive. I think this is going to be very close. I could see both guys hurting each other. I can see Marlon Vera hurting the legs of Sean O'Malley like he did the first time. I could see him absolutely doing that again. And for the love of God, if Vera would grapple, if he would just grapple, he doesn't, it pisses me off. If he would wrestle, I think he's got a huge path to victory where he could put Sean O'Malley in a very difficult position, but he doesn't ever go to that grappling. So we kind of got to wad that up and throw it out. It's like a Sean Strickland type of situation where you just can't expect him to ever do that. But if Vera would grapple, I think he would have a huge advantage over Sean O'Malley, especially in those deeper rounds. And I was very tempted actually to take a flyer on those late round sub props because look, I mean, it's just ridiculous. Vera by sub in round 3 is 60-1. Vera by sub in round 4 is 65-1. Vera by sub in round 5 is 70-1. And it's like, man, if you've beaten the piss out of someone like Sean O'Malley, if he's not throwing with as much heat as he used to, and you're not afraid of those strikes anymore, and he's tired, and you drag him to the mat in round 4, like that right there is where a guy like Marlon Vera, who by the way has a very good submission offensive skill set, very underrated, something people have kind of forgot about. He's got 10 wins by sub. He was a grappler when he started his UFC journey. I think he could finish this thing by submission deep in these rounds. I really do. I just can't count on him to actually take that path. Can you imagine, though, by the way, if Vera knocked out Sean O'Malley in the first fight and then submitted him in the second? Is like, there's no questions. Like, you would leave no questions whatsoever. But I think he wants to knock him out a second time. I think he wants to get in there and use his hands. I think he's kind of fallen in love with his power just a little bit. And that's the type of thing that kind of worries me, that I'm not sure he'll go for subs even in this kind of a fight. But I do think it's going to be a long-lasting fight. I think it's probably going over. It might even go the distance. It's probably a decision. And I can't get behind laying this giant price tag on Sugar Sean O'Malley if it goes that far, because I've seen him slow down in the 3rd round before. This is going to be his first opportunity to go to a 5th round, and if it goes to 5, I know Marlon Vera can do that, and I know in rounds 4 and 5 he's going to be putting up more volume than his opponent more often than not. We've seen it before. He's done it. I've got actual evidence to show that he can do that. That being the case, I think he's live here. I think he's super live here in this spot. And I know you guys are going to hate me for that, but damn, did you guys realize we're on like a 5-fight main event underdog win streak? And I've bet, I think, 4 of the 5. So we're on a big run here with main event underdogs cashing right now. You've got Sean O'Malley, who's a -260, -275 favorite. Marlon Chito Vera, +225, +210, somewhere in that ballpark. And I think it's dog or pass. I'm very tempted on Marlon Vera. I could see him going ahead and winning this fight. I could see him doing it spectacularly. Whether he chips away at Sean O'Malley's legs and, hurts him with a big shot on the feet, O'Malley slows down, he catches him with something bigger. God, I really hope he grapples. Maybe I should now that I've talked about it, we should really sprinkle those late round submission props, shouldn't we? 60-1 and 70-1. Like, how often do you get numbers like that? It's absolute insanity. We called the late round props on Jairzinho last week, and we didn't bet them. We didn't put them on the official record anyway. A couple of people made some money on this show listening to that read, but I didn't have the guts to pull the trigger. Of course, if I pull the trigger this week, it's probably just not going to cash, but I think I have to now that we've mentioned it. That's going to be the move. All right, everybody, let me get caught up here on the chat. We got a couple of comments here. Banish saying, O'Malley slowed down in the Moutinho fight. It's up to Chito to press the issue if he's too passive. The only thing on that one, I'll give him a pass about the Moutinho fight, because frankly, he beat the brakes off of Moutinho. He put up like 300 significant strikes, and Moutinho simply did not go away. Like, that's a guy, he got knocked out in his very next fight. Like, he should have gone down. So that one, I don't really hold that one too harshly against him in that one. Jared saying it's just a perception thing. O'Malley knocked out the champ. Chito still has a lot of questions and is getting a title shot. Doesn't really deserve relative to the division. That might be true, but like I said, man, anybody in this upper echelon of this weight class, they're all good enough to be in close fights with each other. I could absolutely see this one being close again. And like you mentioned, though, it is a perception thing, right? He knocked out a guy he wasn't supposed to knock out in his last fight, so he's getting a whole lot of credit for that. And he should get credit. But like I said, people don't realize how good of a stylistic matchup that was for Sean O'Malley. They thought it was a bad one for him. It's actually a really good one for him. That knockout was always coming. All right, everybody. That is the Undefeated post-weigh-in show. And don't worry, guys. I see you in there in the chat. Marab's next. He's coming. And Umar right behind him. All right, guys, get out there, make some cash this week. I hope this was helpful. And do me a favor, hit the like button on your way out. Tomorrow, My little sister's getting married. Oh, you guys, she picked UFC 299. I'm not going to be live. I'm going to have to like pay for the pay-per-view and like stick it in my pocket and have to like sneak a peek and do everything I can to not get the shit beaten out of me by my wife because she's not going to want me on my phone during her little sister's wedding. It's going to be brutal. So I'm trying to decide, like, do I buy the pay-per-view and then like sneak peeks at it where I can and like try to keep up with it and kind because I have so much action on this card. This is the most action I've had on a card so far this year. I love the spots on this card, and believe it or not, I may be adding more. Like, this is a big important card for me. I can't just read results and feel good or bad about them. I've got to watch. I've got to see what happens as I'm sweating out those bets. It's just, that's the degenerate in me. I'm incapable of just turning the fights off and looking at my bank account and going, oh, cool, I have more or I have less money. Can't do it. So I might go dark. I might go straight dark by the pay-per-view, and like at midnight when everyone's passed out, I'll skip the last couple fireball shots and then I'll stay up late tomorrow night and watch these fights by myself in the dark. I might actually have to do that tomorrow just so I don't get anything spoiled and have a chance to sweat the bets the way God intended. Pray for me. It's going to be so hard at that wedding not to pull my phone out and try to keep up with the prelims and shit like that as we're going on. But I can't ruin my wife's little sister's day, right? I got to be there. I got to suit up. I got to look good. That's what hair's on point this week, guys. I got to look good for the wedding. Thank you guys again very much, and good luck on the action tomorrow night. I will miss you guys being live for fights with everybody on Twitter and talking about shit and live betting. It's my favorite day of the week, and especially because I'm going to have to make my decisions pre-flop this week. There is no live betting. There's no pulling the parachute on Jairzinho Rozenstruik after seeing what happens in round one. If I want to bet Marlon Vera, I got to do it tonight because tomorrow I'm not going to be able to. So it's decision time, baby. I will, of course, tweet out the final card for everybody. And you guys get out there. Have a blessed and wonderful weekend. Have some fun. Happy birthday again to my guy D if you're still listening. Everybody go get that money. I hope we get rich this weekend. Let's roll.